Do I want this career? Do I love my work? Or do I want to continue on this competitive platform? And it was a hard decision, but ultimately I've got kids, and I love the work that I do. I love being able to go and help other people like me, athletes, and the normal average Joe that's in pain, to help them to feel better and move better. And it wasn't an easy decision.
And one thing we always have to keep in mind, when we're looking at the passions we pursue for life, is what does the timeline look like on this? What is the end game? What is the outcome we want to achieve? What does the timeline look like? And how is this going to serve ultimately our priorities and our pursuits going forward? Mm-hmm. And those are a lot of the questions that I think not always easy to answer, but some very important ones to have in the back of your head as we're working through some of these decisions. Is, it's got to be very hard. I know it's hard enough in my case, which is I was much lower on my list of athletes, but just when you're that strong, to step back from that strength and to essentially let it go, it's hard. It's hard mentally, it's hard physically, it's hard emotionally. What was that process like coming out of the pro level that you were at, and then how did you work to be able to work through some of that?
So what ended up drawing me back from it. I guess I should start with, I had already gotten the invite to do the same meet the following year, along with a few other pro level ones. And at the same time, I had also just graduated college through the massage program and became a licensed massage therapist in the state of West Virginia. Started doing that and very quickly realized that the caliber of the work that I do, being specializing in deep tissue, it's very hard on my upper body, especially on my arms, and it just was not coupling well with the level of training that is, I almost want to say, required and expected to compete at the level that I was at, especially if I wanted to continue to climb and try to get higher and to get above where I was and beat some of the other women. So it came down to, do I want this career? Do I love my work? Or do I want to continue on this competitive platform? And it was a hard decision, but ultimately I've got kids, and I love the work that I do. I love being able to go and help other people like me, athletes, and the normal average Joe that's in pain, to help them to feel better and move better. And it wasn't an easy decision, but I ultimately had to choose my career over staying on the competitive platform. And then that's when, after stepping back from some of that, some of the other health things started to pop up that were there all along, but were just hidden from all the other aches and pains of the level of training that I had to keep up with. And I just thought that it was part of that. And even though it was, it also still wasn't normal. Yeah. And there for a minute, it was very frustrating, along with some other things that I was going through in life at the time. I needed the gym still, but I kind of had to take a step back just for my physical health and for the career. And it wasn't easy. I had a lot of hard days, a lot of days of crying, between just family or with like Clayton, owner of the gym. And it was rough, but ultimately it was the decision that I needed to make if I wanted to ever have a chance to be able to do it again and to keep working and to keep helping people, which ultimately brought me more joy than competing. Yeah. So that's where I just had to do it and get through it. And we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, and I think the most important part of all that you talk about is you recognize that there was a choice to be made. Mm-hmm. Because I think so many of us get tied up in this situation where so many people in that circumstance would just keep trying to push to do both simultaneously.
I did.
Yeah.
And it ended up eventually getting to the point to where, along with me just, getting a little distracted at work with my technique that, I ended up having to take off a whole week of work because I couldn't even run a hairbrush through my hair or spray my perfume because my dominant arm was just like, I'm done. you've got to chill, Heather. And if you don't, you're going to be done competing in powerlifting and with your career. So that's where I really had to take a step back. And so I learned that lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a hard one to learn because with our culture and our society, there's very much this kind of like grinded out mentality. Mm-hmm. And that's not all bad. There's a lot of good to that.
Oh yeah.
You can make a lot happen. You can get a lot done, far more than often what we would allow ourselves to believe. But I think where we fall astray with that is we try to get into too many things all at once. Mm-hmm. And I know I have been extraordinarily guilty of that in my life, especially when we first started the business. We were that way. And really it's been since we learned to narrow that focus so that you can direct the stream a lot farther, that we've really started making progress in the few key areas, the 3 to 5 things, whatever it will be, that are very most important to you.
Yeah.
And we've spent a lot of time talking about priorities. And with priorities, one thing that Curtis Miller taught us actually is you're never dividing your time up amongst priorities. You're always fully focused on one priority at a time, or at least that's how you should be. Mm-hmm. Because if you're like if I'm watching my daughter and I'm like 40% focused on her and 60% focused on editing my video post for that day or whatever, then I'm not putting my best effort into either one, and they're both suffering because of that. And so it's this idea that you learn to find balance between the priorities, but that balance isn't always even. But whenever you are working on one of those priorities, you are giving yourself 100% focus toward that thing. And where we get stuck is we don't always recognize that it is not actually beneficial to either priority sometimes to try to pursue two things that take the same that same massive amount of time and energy and focus. And I think what we have to do in those situations is, if you feel like you're just being pulled in too many directions, your time, your energy, your focus is being too heavily consumed, we have to look and see what's the end game here. Mm-hmm. For you, I imagine that as far as an athlete goes, you could put in 3, 4, 5 more years or however long and try to climb X amount of spots. But it's like, well, what was your end goal for that pursuit? Was it to be number one? Maybe if you were trying to be number one in the world, maybe it would have been worth that time and energy and sacrifice. But if it's, if you're going to put 4 more years into it and climb 10 spots or whatever, is that the outcome you're wanting? And if it is, that's great. But sometimes I think when we ask ourselves that question, it becomes very obvious of, oh, that's not actually something I really want that badly anyway. So why would I put that kind of energy into it? Versus with your career, I do imagine that's something you probably want to be able to do for a very long time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so it's that question of, this is the outcome I want. So this is the direction I want to move in.
And that's basically how I looked at it. I sat there and I said, okay, so I can keep training, keep competing, dial it back down with work a little bit. But then I stopped and thought, okay, the powerlifting is not going to be what's going to feed me and my children. And on top of that, for me to have advanced to what would have put me anywhere near number one, I would have had to have been willing to do things that I necessarily wasn't okay with doing, or just that went outside of what I personally, was okay with. And then it came to the career side where I was like, okay, I could dial back the gym, still be a part of the community of powerlifting. I can still do the coaching. I can still do the judging. I can still show up to the meets and help as a massage therapist, help the athletes. And then I can come back to work and I can still be number one in this area and be the people that everyone knows, okay, I'm hurting, I need fixed, I can go to her. Or with the traveling people when they come through, oh, well, we heard this is the girl that we need to go to. And that was what I desired more, because that's what brought me the more joy, having someone walking into my office hardly able to stand up straight or limping down the hallway and then leaving and doing jumping jacks because they feel great. And that brought more joy and for myself to allow me to be a better mother, a better friend, a better just person in general, a better provider for my kids than overworking myself in the gym to try to get to a spot that I likely wasn't going to get to realistically without, reaching the levels of doing things that I just didn't want to do. And so I had to make that decision, and I think it was the right one.